So the people are used to conservation. We have a president that is interested in ocean conservation, and I can talk to you about this at length, but President Bush is the first president to show an interest in ocean conservation. We don't know if there'll be another one in the next 50 years. And then there's a Pew Environment Group that's willing to act as an intermediate because they have an ocean legacy project. I mentioned the memo that was issued by President Bush. There are currently 3 areas in the Pacific under consideration for monument designation, and we are in competition with them. They are Rose Atoll in American Samoa, the Line Islands and other uninhabited atolls, and then the far northern waters of the Marianas. So that's my lengthy introduction, shortened. I'm going to sort of get into the concept now, talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the timing of this, and then the opportunities. The number one reason for doing this is environmental protection. Anybody who's been out in the lagoon for the last 20 years knows that there's fewer fish, and the fish that are there are smaller. And this is not just the Saipan Lagoon. This is pretty much all of our oceans around the world. New England, off the coast of Alaska. So this would be good for the environment. It's the number one reason for doing this. I'm an environmentalist, I'm sold, where do I sign? But there's other reasons to do it. It would help us meet the Micronesia Challenge. It would build on our cultural and constitutional conservation protections. We would get co-management of our waters. We'd get lots of free media exposure, which probably interests you, and diversification of our local economy. So just talk about some of those environmental protections. This is a slide taken from a Division of Fish and Wildlife presentation that they give. Talks about 80 different protected areas around the world, and they looked at all of them, and they found that in all of these protected areas, a couple years after they're created, you get more diversity, more fish, and bigger fish. So protected areas work. Micronesia Challenge is a region-wide conservation strategy agreed to by the FITIAL administration. It started in Palau, but every government in Micronesia has agreed to effectively conserve 30% of our nearshore resources. This would help us meet that goal. I already mentioned that Chamorros are used to conservation. There have always been restrictions on fishing in Chamorro culture, and it's enshrined in our Constitution. And I always like to point out that my father and Sylvan's father were 2 of the people that voted for this. We get co-management of our waters, and I've got this presentation, this document in my office. The federal government has control over our waters. They'll continue to have jurisdiction over our waters. CNMI currently has jurisdiction over the land. Because of Article 12, we will always have jurisdiction over the land. So you would sort of have 2 separate protected areas, one for the land, one for the water, and with this, they would figure out a way to manage it as one part. Get free media exposure, not just in the United States, but also internationally. And we're already seeing some of this. Sorry, I've got about 5 minutes, so I gotta hurry up. Concept challenges. There's a limited time frame for this. When President Bush leaves office, we no longer have a president interested in ocean conservation, and this opportunity ceases to exist. There's also other things going on with CUC and federal immigration and minimum wage. It just might not seem like a priority. And then there's also, what if scenarios. What if there are diamonds? What if there's gold? What if there's manganese nodules? Well, there might be. But we know for sure that there are a potential for a protected area. Some of the opportunities, I already mentioned environmental conservation being the number one, enhancing the original intentions of our Constitution. We'd be able to market the Mariana Trench as an icon similar to Mount Everest or the Eiffel Tower or the Grand Canyon. It would be federally funded, plenty of media exposure, education opportunities. We would get a visitor center funded by NOAA and diversify our economy. Timing, already mentioned the CNMI is in crisis. The power was out as I was driving here, and that just might seem like more of a priority to people right now. But this is an opportunity that won't be around forever. There's a window, and we need to take advantage of it if we think it's something that we want. So, when was the CNMI involved? It's important to remember that when President Bush issued that memo, the process began. And the federal government on their side is doing a assessment, and it's my understanding that they've already called the governor and that they're in contact with people here. But as far as Pew goes, we've been doing education and outreach since about March. We first gave presentations to the business community and some people in the government, but Jay Nelson was out here last August, and and talked to people in the governor's office, and then last January, they came out and talked to Diego Benavente and Syntec iPad about the possibility of doing something like this. So where are we in the process? Again, it's just beginning. There's an assessment going on. Lori's telling Andy to hurry up. And the feds will be coming out here and probably end of September, middle of October, to talk to people locally, leaders, community, to see what their feelings are. What happens next? I continue to give presentations like I'm doing now. I give 3 presentations per week in my office, which is in Garapan, and in the meantime, we just sort of wait for the federal government to come out here and do their assessment. This is probably what you're more interested in, other than saving some fish, but the economic impact of a potential marine national monument. And I've got copies of the report on every table. There's more in the back if you need them. We commissioned a report from the University of Guam. Tom Iverson is a professor who's been out here for about 20 years. He wrote it, and he basically identified 3 benefits, and they would be increased federal funding, increase in research, and an increase in tourism. Now that one is hard to quantify because, why do people come to Saipan? Is it because they saw it in the newspaper? Was there a sale at Northwest? But we pay $6 million to MBA every single year to promote CNMI, so I can't see how lots of free exposure and media would hurt. If you think better in charts, this just sort of lays it out. Between the 3 sources, it'd be about $10 million, about 400 jobs. Just some examples. This is a research center built in Hawaii, federally funded. Potential for high-end ecotourism. This is a tour that is in Hawaii that flies up to Midway to take people snorkeling and stuff like that. Potentially something like that could be created here. And where are we today? Again, the process has just begun. The White House is doing their assessment. They'll be coming up here in the upcoming months, the upcoming weeks, and you'll have the opportunity to share your opinion with them. In the meantime, there's a group called Friends of the Monument. It's being headed by some of our elders in our community, like Ike Cabrera. I think David Sablon is actually a member. Is that true? Yeah, he's nodding his head yes. Agnes McPherson. And they've got a petition going around. And then sort of my role is to sort of correct the spread of information. Things like Pew was only interested in this so that they can give it away to the military to bomb the islands, or that somehow we'll be taking the islands away from the CNMI. And in fact, the idea behind conservation in every national park I've ever been to is to protect it for people to use. So that's my presentation. Is that the bell telling me I'm finished? About 100 years ago, in the continental United States, there's a large canyon, the Grand Canyon, the largest canyon on land. It was protected as a monument, and here we are 100 years later, and we sit right next to the deepest canyon in the world. It's 7 miles deep, and we have the potential to work with the federal government to create a monument here. So that is all I have for you. If you have any more questions, I'll be available. Sitting at this table over here. We have a website. It's www.globaloceanlegacy.org. And with that, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to the next presentation.